space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission, to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Retrack. I'm Captain Jim. With me, of course, is Admiral Elliot.
Hi there.
And Dr. Squee.
Time to go amok.
And as you may guess then, this week we're talking about Spock Amok, the 5th episode of the first season of Strange New Worlds. And this is the last one that the critics saw in advance, because the critics got the first... obviously, you know, we get all these media passes as well, but we've just decided to watch them the same. But, you know, these other media outlets that for some reason are given screeners that we're not, they got the first 5. So we're kind of moving into uncharted territory as of next week now.
Visiting new worlds and strange civilizations, which critics haven't pissed all over yet.
Exactly. So, you know, when they give all these positive reviews, the back half of the season might be rubbish, but I guess...
Actually, you see, I joke about the critics
I
pissing
can't
on
see
it, but
that
really...
actually how the season's going.
No, I mean, like, you've got to say, it's like I joke about the critics pissing on it. It's one show which the critics have pretty much universally been in favor of. This one scored very highly.
Yeah. I mean, there's that whole thing about, it's the highest rated show on... the highest rated Star Trek show ever on Rotten Tomatoes, and... that's not really a fair assessment, because it's like it's only been out 5 weeks, whereas the others have had numerous years for negative reviews to creep in. So, and far more episodes for negative opinions to come through.
And I'm going to assume that they haven't taken the metric of like when some of them which were launched in the era of Rotten Tomatoes, they could work it out for where they were at this stage. I'm guessing they didn't do that homework.
I don't know how in depth they went on Rotten Tomatoes when they were backdating things, but I mean, it's a nice clickbaity headline to say it's the highest rated Star Trek show ever, but you know, a bit of perspective. Anywho, so this episode, I think last week when we did our predictions, one of you did guess that it'd be a Spock episode, so there we go, Dr. Squee, you were right, and
I think did predict that they were going to, because they kind of like, they were itching to go into the lore of Spock. I think I did predict something to do with an existing storyline of Spock, which I feel like this does fit into.
I don't know if this is a case of be careful what you wish for, but you also last week expressed that you wished they'd just do a goofy episode that was really silly, and
yeah, I got both my wishes at once. They were separate wishes, guys. They weren't meant to go in.
So this is the body swap episode then, which we've not done in Star Trek for a good long while.
And I mean, just generally, but especially, like, it feels like very early into a show's history, 5 episodes in, where we're still getting to know the characters. And okay, we do know Spock, but we don't really know his fiance. And they're doing a body swap with someone who we don't really know and someone who is a different version of them because it's like younger in their journey. It seems very early on to do a body swap. That seems like an interesting choice to me. I was wondering how you fellas felt about that.
I don't mind it because it also sort of ties in with the B plot a bit. How you've got the other race that alter the personalities for who they're talking to. It ties two of the stories that are happening together. Yeah.
I mean, for me, a good old Freaky Friday, though, you need 2 very distinct, different... Like, they even make a joke to try and take the sin off it. It's like, can't you tell the differences between our many different mannerisms or whatever Spock says? So they even kind of, like, make a joke of it. I like my Freaky Fridays to have 2 very different characters who are very much struggling with it all the way. And I don't know.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then may I recommend the episode The Old Switcheroo from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because it's only Shredder and Splinter who swap bodies in that one.
Oh, fucking hell, I remember that one now. That was brilliant. Oh,
you see, that's... No, I mean, I'd not thought about whether it's too early in the run or whatnot, or even, maybe contrasting personalities would have been more. Can you imagine if they'd done it with Spock and McCoy? I mean, they kind of did in Star Trek 3, but
yes.
But what I did think is that to say it's the central hook of the episode, I don't think they really did an enormous amount with it. You know,
I think it just sort of played on established Vulcan law because we had the country.
Yeah.
Which we've seen that can be swapped between people before.
Yeah, the mechanics of it. Yeah. It's just in terms of just to say we're going to do a body swap episode.
I think what we're doing, because we've established to bring in it, and we've established that she's asked him to marry him, and they've got this relationship. We've got to get somehow to a point where she's chosen that she wants to be with Strong instead.
Yes, definitely.
So we've got to, and because she's not part of the Enterprise crew, it maybe is going to be quite rushed how we get there.
You see, I don't know. To me, again, it gets back to, okay, yeah, it may not be my favorite kind of plot point, but I do get why you can have Spock being more towards his human side in this earlier version of his journey. I still think every single Vulcan they show now is emotional. Like, there's no excuse why they're not emotional. I think the Vulcans from the original series would be mocking these Vulcans for how emotional they are. And I don't get what their USP is anymore.
This started in Enterprise, though.
Oh, God, no. Oh, yeah. There are so many series who've done this badly. Like, the only ones who really did it well. I think even DS9 wasn't really great. They always made the Vulcans more pissy than actually logical. Yeah. Like, they were mistaking pissiness for logic, you know. It's like, or speaking in a very, very measured tone.
Voyager probably is the last one that nailed it.
Exactly. Voyager did it pretty well.
And then you didn't have a lot. They had a couple of other Vulcan crew members, but they were very Vulcan.
And I would even give the Kelvin timeline did a different take on Vulcans, but they made them so logical. And they had a lovely way of having, like, the only way in which Sarek could, admit that he loved his wife was after she died. And that was in one moment with Spock. Whereas this one, they're prizing relationships over their duty, which seems so un-Vulcan. Given that she's meant to be picking him up for not being Vulcan enough, she then acts totally, and they've also thrown out the window the whole thing of the way that Vulcans express their love through their kind of little finger work, for want of a better phrase. And I kind of like, I think you can do something a little bit sexy with that. You know, you could make it look a bit more romantic, but they're going straight for snogging, and
it's weird seeing Spock just lying in bed post-coitally with a woman. Like, I have no problem with Spock getting his end away. That's absolutely fine, but. It does just feel weird seeing it. But just to go back to the body swap thing for a moment, what got me is it's a long time into the episode before the body swap actually takes place, and then it's wrapped up fairly quickly, and we get maybe 3 or 4 scenes where they play to the comedy of it, and it just seems like if you're going to do such a big concept, I expected a lot more time spent on it in an episode, whereas this is quite a packed episode. Like there's
a lot of different stories going on.
Yeah, exactly.
And taken in the abstract, I will say I kind of enjoyed this episode. There was a lot of fun in it, but it just didn't seem to fit the characters that they were using, or certainly Vulcans.
Yeah. Well, to go down the Vulcan route, then the opening scene, though. Just Amok time too,
I'm still a green-blooded geek. I still got slightly turgid when I did hear the Amok time music. Jesus Christ! I'm only human.
Bringing the music in was great, and repeating the beats of it, and the idea of having human Spock versus Vulcan Spock. That deserves an episode all of its own, because that's always a cool idea. Like when you had in Superman 3, where you have evil Superman versus Clark Kent, or
Torres in Voyager.
Sorry,
Torres in Voyager.
Yeah, Torres in Voyager when they split them. Or there's an episode of Angel where Angel fights Angelus, and this idea of taking 2 halves of someone's personality and having them fight is great.
Tuvix went the opposite way.
We have the original series with Kirk.
Yeah,
When
well,
he
that's
gets
it
split.
works. Absolutely. So yeah, dude, I'd be happy with a whole episode of fully human Spock and Vulcan Spock.
And that was so fun to see, but they do the thing which, like, South Park wonderfully took the piss out of when they did their COVID specials. I don't know if anyone watched these, but they said it in the future, like after COVID, and they've got to go back to kind of cure it. But there's this like a couple of moments when they're in the future, they keep on giving these moments like, "Hi, I'm the doorbell. I scream things out now. I scream things out now." It's like, yeah, I know, and they do sort of something like, because we're in the future and this is what happens. Yeah, I know. I live here. And there was kind of a moment in this where it's like they go, it's like, oh, I must challenge you to the. I'm going to forget what's the name of the right.
Forget the exact name. I should
challenge
know
you
it,
to blah 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 blah. And then he goes, but that's deadly combat. It's like, yeah, I know. We're all Vulcans here. Why would you point that out? You know,
I choose color 3.
I know this makes me a huge geek, but it's like every time when they point something out that the people on the screen would all know, it's like,
yeah.
Well, why the fuck would you say that? We all know
I'm
this.
sure there's a name for it where
Color
it's
3.
no. I mean, I'm sure there's a name for the thing where you have characters saying an obvious thing for the viewer's benefit. Like, I can't remember what
exposition
the term is. Well, it's exposition, but it's like a particular. I'm sure I've heard it like called something like playing cabbage or just something daft like that.
Yeah.
But you used to get it a lot in TNG with Worf, and it's partially the source of all them Worf-looking stupid videos you get on YouTube. They'd often use Worf to go, Captain, what is that? And it's like, do you not know anything, Mr. Worf? I mean, come on.
I mean, and all you could do is it's mildly change the line to be like, oh, so you challenged me to Mortal Kombat? You know, you just layer it in a little bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's a very geeky point.
It is, but you know, what else are we here for?
I was going to say, but where else am I going to say it?
We're sat here on a Wednesday afternoon recording a Star Trek podcast. I think we've thrown caution to the wind where geekiness is.
Yeah.
Just let me have a word. Spock, you might want to just realize that everyone there knows that. Okay, right, cool. So I've got his ear right there. So
for anyone listening on purely on the audio, Dr.
I think it's also because they play to a new audience.
Yeah. So I had a background of the whole Spock's head, and then it's kind of like new Spock's head in front of Amok Time having a fight. But the way StreamYard has concentrated down, just looks like a Spock's ear looking over me.
I think a lot of it, like when they're doing that, is because they're also aiming at a new audience. And if you look at like the forums, you see so many of the forums, and you've got like people going, "Oh, I started watching TNG. I've never watched TOS," and it's like, what? Why have you never gone back and watched it?
Yeah, I mean, there is a big thing,
and I think they're playing to that where, to us who are mega fans, we just love that as a shout back to the original series, and we know what's going on. But they're having to also play to the new audience.
Oh yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, the way they write these episodes, I mean, I'm loving Strange New Worlds. Please don't let me give any other impression, but it's just having that devil in the detail of explaining it in the dialogue without making it sound like you're saying something everyone would know. So again, all you got to do is go and say, "So I'm challenged to Mortal Kombat." You know, you could just add it into the dialogue, restating it without saying, "But that's this." It's like, you'll know. You know, there's ways of doing it.
No, okay, we'll keep an eye on that then. We'll see how many more times they do it. We're back on Starbase 1 again, so I feel like they want to sell us Starbase 1 toys because we've been there twice in a season, so it's like, right.
You mean one of the most venerated Starbases ever in history? What's a venerated Starbase? Okay.
Oh,
right.
It's the first one. It's number 1, yeah. This isn't just any Starbase. I mean, come on.
I mean, it did look pretty damn plush, I'm not going to lie. You know?
Well, it has been rebuilt since the Klingon War.
It has.
Yeah.
And Pike's rocking the green shirt. The wrap around green shirt.
The Pikelets.
I have no problem with that. I have no problem with him paying homage to what Kirk did with the uniform.
Yes, and if we've had the Picardigan, I give you the Pikelet. I'm going to choose to call on him.
Very good.
I do like how it's got like the leather trim to it, that they've updated it. And
Also,
I have no problem that the uniforms are playing homage to the original series, but I have absolutely no problem that they've been updated.
No, not at all.
Oh yeah, it's minor tweaks. It's the same
Yeah.
uniform. It's like I was thinking when I was watching, because I watched this episode back last night. I started watching the episode before because I'd only watched it once, the Gone episode. And I was looking around the bridge and I thought, you know what? It's different, but it feels like the original bridge. There's something about the feeling of they've captured. That's all I want. I just want them to capture
They've
the feel.
captured the essence.
And you know that uniform's meant to be that uniform. You know it's the same uniform.
Yeah.
It just looks slightly different because they've modernized it.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, how bloody cut does Anson Mount look in that outfit? He's wearing the crap out of that.
I saw a meme today. I'll share it on the Facebook group. But it's, you know, the famous meme where it's a guy and he's with his girlfriend, but he's looking at the other girl who's walking past, and they've done it for everything. And this one, it says, for the guy character, it says, me, a heterosexual man, my wife is the woman before, and then the person who's walking past it just says Anson Mount.
I'll buy it. Him or Admiral Silver Daddy Bear, you know, like those two guys, they could turn a man's head. But the only thing I am waiting for Anson Mount's hair to finally get so big as Pike that it starts interfering with the ceiling on the bridge.
It is really impressive, isn't it? Yeah, he wants to be careful if there's any like low-hanging fans or anything. But
it's a feat of engineering, his hair.
It really is. Yeah, whoever does the hair and makeup, they should probably win an Emmy or something. Not for the Vulcans, but you know.
I like to think that he goes into the trailer every week ready with makeup and hair, and he goes like, bigger.
Yeah.
Can't go any bigger. If we give her any more, she'll interfere with the ceiling fans.
No more.
Like, yeah. What's it going to be like by episode 10? I mean,
it's going to be like 3 yeomen carrying his hair.
Yeah.
I want to go back to Starbase 1 and say that I really like the fact they've gone back there this episode.
Yeah.
Because they just got the arses kicked last episode.
Oh, yeah, it makes sense.
They've gone back to a starbase for repairs. And
that is nice to see.
I really like that. Like we got it in Enterprise where they were using CGI, so we saw that the Enterprise got more and more damaged as weeks went on. But how often have we seen it in Star Trek where there's been a massive battle, and we know we're in episodic TV now, but there's been a massive battle, being shot up to hell, and then the next week they're just carrying on like normal.
Yeah, I agree. I think what we're going to see is some classic setups for episodes, but like you say, Elliot, but with more realism to...
Yeah.
If you get damaged, you're going to have to get repaired. If you have something happen to a character in this episode, they're still going to be feeling the effects in the next episode. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, they do it on TNG, but they wouldn't do it in the right order. Like, they'd have episodes where they get battered. And then the next week, absolutely fine. But then they'd want an episode set at a starbase. So they'd go, we've got the starbase clearly for repairs. And it's like, wouldn't it have made more sense to do that after, you know?
And it's like,
that's so true.
Like I was trying to work this out as well, and they're saying, like, the crew needed some well-earned rest and relaxation. And you're thinking, hold on, we're 5 weeks in here with the TV show.
Yeah, you're meant to be on a 5-year mission.
But then when you think about it, if there's 10 episodes per season, with 6 months, they've been out in space for 6 months and got the asses kicked.
Oh, I was also thinking.
So
I don't care if
they're ready for some rest and relaxation after 6 months.
I was going to say, I don't even care if it's 5 weeks. If you've had that 5 weeks, all those things happen to you in 5 weeks. I need a fucking holiday as well. I don't.
Yeah, true. Come on.
I think we can look at every episode is 5 weeks now.
Roughly, yeah. If we're doing a season,
to a year, we've got to go. There's 5 weeks.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like with any episode, the suggestion is almost like that's what's happening this month, and then you have some kind of longer or shorter, or, you know,
So we've got the A plot then is Spock and T'Pring. The B plot is Captain Pike has to make a treaty with the Rangovians. And he seems to have like issues with the Tellarites. Like they go, oh, the Tellarites have tried it. And Pike just sort of has this attitude like, oh, the bloody Tellarites.
Well, Tellarites are already established in Trek lore that they're argumentative. So would Tellarites be the right people to send on diplomatic missions?
Evidently not in this case. But I like
actually, as it transpires towards the end, it makes no difference who did send.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but I almost like that it's a hint at a bit of a character flaw in Pike that maybe you don't like the Tellarites, you know.
Yeah.
And up until this point, he has been the most
The perfect man.
of perfect people.
Are you saying Pike is #Teller racist?
He might be Teller racist again. Let's
So-
keep an eye on whether he is or not. But it comes across as just a mild thing. But you never know. We could be in for a massive character swerve here.
Like I say, I think he's been out on these missions before, and he's probably come across some of the situations where the Tellarites
Mm-hmm.
have gone for a diplomatic thing. And as an argumentative species that like to be argued with, they're probably not the best species to send off to be diplomatic.
No.
It was really interesting, like, because one of the, like, to your point, Jim, one of the best kind of ones I can remember from DS9, I did love the episode where Quark kind of challenged Cisco on his attitudes towards the Ferengi, and he did that a couple of times. And of course, Quark was using it to manipulate him, like, so he kind of lived up to the stereotype. But it did kind of like call into questions, like, well, we're meant to be the stuff. Like, if we're meant to be able to reach any race through empathy, why are the Ferengi immune to that? So I do kind of love it. I hope they do something like that, because I think challenging those stereotypes about people is really good.
And it reminded me a little bit of in Enterprise, the sort of frosty attitude a lot of them have got to the Vulcans. And, you know, I like the idea.
That's quite established why they would.
Yeah, but I like the idea that, you know, this is still relatively early days of the Federation, and maybe there is a little bit of mistrust there. You know, I don't mind that. And then the C plot, then we start with Ortega's, Chapel, and M'Benga going on shore leave, and M'Benga's rocking his hat, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, I loved M'Benga and his hat. I love M'Benga.
I didn't like that he took it off. He's like, okay, I'll take it off. Like, you don't take it off, M'Benga. You stick with that hat.
Oh, do you know, though, he took it off. He did not put it down, though. I reckon as soon as he got down, he's like, hey.
Oh, we see him a bit later, don't we? But you see, no, stand up for it.
Yeah, I agree. I love the hat.
But what this triggers is this
D
revelation that, number one is called Where Fun Goes to Die. And you get this thing of...
It's what they call them as a pair, Where Fun Goes to Die.
I like it later on where she says, like, I'm not Fun's graveyard. She's like, no, it's Where Fun Goes to Die, not Fun's graveyard. But yeah, it sets up this thing of Enterprise Bingo, which we very, very, very briefly got mentioned with Uhura and Ortegas before.
I've got to admit, that is the sort of, are we calling that the C plot line? I think it was okay.
I'd say Una and Lan is the C plot, Pike and Diplomacy is the B plot, Spock and T'Pring is the A plot, and Chapel fits into the A plot. Really?
Chapel's in the A plot. Yeah, I mean, I'd say then the C plot for me, fine. Didn't object to it. Didn't set me alight or anything.
It was good fun.
Yeah, fun little side plot. Just go along the other.
There was no danger. Nothing important was happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very lower decks kind of thing.
Yeah, they were just doing something.
Like it's literally lower decks because they say, "Oh, the lower decks people play this."
Yeah,
it's the kind of thing
and lower.
But it's the kind of thing that would have been the plot of an episode of Lower Decks as well, is them doing this Enterprise Bingo. Again, I'd have taken a full episode of that.
Well, we might get that in an episode of Lower Decks.
Yeah, I like
this sets it up for. You can imagine Mariner finding an old pad or something of a game that they played on the Enterprise back in so and so. Oh, let's have a game of this.
Yeah. I like episodes of TV where our characters are playing a game or doing a challenge or something. I'd have happily done a whole episode on Lan and number one doing that. But then T'Pring is worried that Spock's too human. That seems to be the thing, or at least Spock thinks that T'Pring thinks he's too human. And
T'Pring's being human all over it. Oh, she's being emotional at least. I just love it.
But what's most significant about this is that we finally get the opening credits 15 minutes into the episode.
Yeah.
I know it's just a thing I've got that I notice these things. But when it happened, I was like, whoa, we've not had the credits yet. What?
I think it's noticeable with Star Trek especially compared to a lot of shows, when the opening credits happen. Because there's so many shows now that literally just go hit a flash of of what the show's called, and that's it for credits.
Yeah.
These are the proper credits. So
and there's no more credit sequence more iconic than the original series and Next Generation. And obviously, this version of Star Trek fits into that mold of having the Space to Final Frontier at the beginning. And I love the credit sequence so much that I think, like you, I do notice it a lot that it kind of appears quite late in the episode.
It's just one of them things I always notice when it's later in the episode. But this is one of the things I mean about the body swap. So we're 15 minutes into the episode before we even get the credits, and that's way before we get to what effectively is the A plot. But we do get quite a bit about Chapel. So she seems to be in this casual relationship with this guy. He's a bit more serious. But from her chat with Ortegas, it sounds like she's had a bit of a string of casual relationships.
She just likes a casual relationship, and she doesn't want to get serious. If she gets too serious with someone, it'll have to be the one.
Well, I feel this is what, obviously we're setting up that she's got this massive crush on Spock. That's where we leave this episode. But we know that Richard Corby's going to come into play at some point in the future. So
the love of her life.
Exactly. So I feel like we're going to get some really interesting stuff going forward with that.
Also, I think with that one, it's kind of like there's a kind of clear path of how she changes from who she is to who she's going to be. I feel like that relationship with Corby is what changes her and what changes her relationship to Spock. So, like in the future, they haven't got this jovial relationship. Spock barely even notices her, basically.
Yeah.
I feel like that I can see how that one's going to track, kind of.
Maybe they're going to play it a bit different. Like maybe she's going to go all out chasing Spock and he'll reject her and Corby will be a rebound. And you should never, on a rebound, you should never go out with a guy who's making androids that are going to take over the galaxy. It just doesn't work. But
that's why you don't get involved with mud.
Yeah, but while she's chatting to Spock, he mentions Ichaya, which was his sailor, wasn't it, in yesteryear?
Yeah.
So I like that.
So nicely tied into a bit of continuity.
Yeah, and the fact that he gets a name, like they've often mentioned that he had a sailor, but I think it's only in yesteryear and in this one that we're actually
getting
it Ichaya. So I enjoyed that.
Can I also give a nod? I will give a nod to one joke they do with Spock here, which feels like it can fit in with Spock of this time very well. It's when it's like, and she goes like, "Yeah, that was a joke, Spock." It's like, I know, humans are almost as easy to wind up as that was nice. That was well done.
Yeah, that was good. And
very Spock.
Her advice then is what prompts him to do this soul sharing, which leads to the body swap. Yeah, I mean, it works. Mechanically, it works. We know about the Catra and all of that stuff.
There's two things I did want from this Catra business, though. One is, when they go into it, I want a good reason why it didn't work. I want a real kind of like pseudoscience reason why it didn't work, which I know Benga does.
I have some
one second. So 1 second, let me finish. Then you can give your rebuttal. Jeez, man. Okay. So I want a bit more kind of like ritual reason why it doesn't work. And when they do the Catra swap back, I want them to do what they've done every other Star Trek show. It's like when they're doing the Starfleet medicine, they've always got some symbols of the race. So they kind of would have a gong there for the Vulcans and a few kind of little throws, like Neelix does when there's anything to do with him in sickbay. I wanted a bit more of that, but sorry, Elliot, what's your kind of in-canon explanation?
I think the reason it's gone wrong when they're doing this mental swap, Catra, is because of what's the race that they're doing diplomacy called?
The Rangovians.
The Rangovians.
Okay.
Are using their mental powers to be empathic, to know how other species are. So their empathic powers have interfered with their.
See, I love that. Why didn't they write that in? That would have been so much better.
But that's
exactly what I wanted.
That to me, that makes sense. That it's gone wrong because there's another mental thing going on.
Elliot, you know I love some headcanon just as much as you do. I just like them to write it in sometimes.
Yeah,
I think that should have been in there.
That's what they'd have done in TNG or something, like in the episode Sarek. It's the people who are visiting, isn't it?
Yeah.
How good is Sarek?
So there's these already sort of precedent for that sort of thing happening.
Yeah.
Perfect. I just wish the writers had done the work instead of us. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and the Rangovians, we get all this back and forth like, oh, they've cancelled talks. No, they haven't. They want to talk to Spock.
Yeah, I did. I love this race, and I did love the conclusion. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I thought this was so well done. Again, that kind of misdirect as well of like, you assume they're just mimicking the race, and then it's like radical empathy, which gets brought in later.
Yeah.
It's, I like a good misdirect that I actually fall for. I've said this before, I think, but I love it on Penn and Teller Fool Us. The thing most people don't get is they see it as a game show where they want to beat them. Penn and Teller have spoken about this quite a few times, and they've said it's like, no, we love to get fooled. That's the joy of magic, is when someone does fool you.
It's
then
when
you
don't
later
know
out
what's
work out how
happening.
they did it. It's so much fun, and they get that experience so little. I want to get fooled by an episode of TV, and then to have a really clever reason why I was wrong.
I
And the
love
reason don't
magic when I don't know how they're doing the trick. When it fools me. When you know what someone's doing, it's like, oh well, I know that.
Well, and I also like to be fooled into a false sense of security or smugness, even of like, oh, I see what they're doing. God, that's a bit passe. To be that they kind of just mimicking each other, and then they go, oh no, Squee. That's what I enjoy. That's like, I love being proved wrong by clever writing.
I remember I was talking to a magician once. We were talking about Derren Brown, so I'm a big fan of Derren Brown and everything. And he was talking about one of Derren Brown's tricks, and he said, "Oh, I know the mechanism by which he does it because that's how you do that trick. But watching it, I can't see how he's done it. You know, and that must be fascinating.
Yeah,
yeah, I know what he must have done, but
I can't see how he's done it.
Yeah, and it's like even when they're talking about Fool Us, they say it's like sometimes people can fool us with this spectacular leap of logic that we just never thought of, or something that's like, I would never thought that you do that. Other times it can be just minutiae of like a little thing they do in the process which we didn't think of, and that's just as valid. And I love all that.
And I think in this episode they do mention really early on that there's this thing about empathy, so the seeds are there.
Yeah.
Especially on a rewatch. And then I do like some of the dialogue with Spock and T'Pring where one of them says it. It's either Spock in T'Pring's body or T'Pring in Spock's body. And they say, there is one more chant we can try. We will need a gong.
It's her. She says it. Yeah, I love that.
And the delivery, I thought that was brilliant.
We need a gong. I believe I've got one in my room. There's no time for that. We must answer the door.
And then she says, Spock, T'Pring in Spock's body says, like, Spock, I do not like hijinks.
Yeah, see, the hijinks thing is where it kind of crossed the line into, like, even the concept of hijinks, I think, is very human. And for her, because I think it's her in his body who says it, it works better if Spock says it because he's half human, so he's got a reason. And we're saying at this point in his life, he's more in touch with his human side.
Yeah, that seems to be where they're going with this.
But she's the one who brings up hijinks first, and that doesn't... I'm sorry, but Vulcans would not even accept a principle of hijinks because it's a human principle. They don't say that I don't like hijinks. They might say it's like, oh, this sounds like this infuriating human capacity for hijinks, as they call. You know, I don't know. Again, it
does lead to a funny scene with Pike, though, and like you said, that leads to this great payoff line where it's like, well, as you can obviously tell by our different mannerisms.
That is kind of fun, but it's like it sort of highlights why this episode was a bit premature for me. I'd much like this, like the end of series 1, maybe even where we've kind of got to know these characters, and there's a reason why we know they're different. And
that is undermined. Like the joke there is, no, you've got the joke you feel like is meant to be, no, you've got exactly the same mannerisms, but they haven't. Like if you look at how Spock, the physical Spock, is standing. He's holding himself differently, and he's got his hands sort of like steepled, and be like, oh, actually, they do have subtly different mannerisms, so the joke doesn't quite land. Never mind. Back to the C plot then. So Una and Lan have found these people trying to get out the airlock. I did enjoy the good cop, bad cop bit.
That was
that was
fun.
really good fun.
Yeah.
And I like how sort of over the top number one is that she's just like, oh, we're all having a laugh. And
then you've got Lan. Bingo. Yes, I know it's bingo. Explain it.
Yeah.
What's bingo? I've got no idea.
Yeah, that was good fun, and I like that they find the list and everything, which is doing the rounds on the internet now, so you can have a look at the official list of Enterprise bingo. And then we get sort of dual strands set up for Spock and T'Pring. So T'Pring in Spock's body's got to do the negotiations, and Spock in T'Pring's body's got to go find this guy who her job basically is to rehabilitate people through logic. I feel like that strand's a bit undercooked.
And that's undercooked. And she also says it's like seems like I have a. She uses a very kind of like emotive word, like I've got a tack or a skill, or she uses a euphemism for having a skill for talking serial killers. Again, it's just that little devil in detail of using human kind of emotive terms, like metaphorical terms. Falcons are so literal, and again, it's just another one of those little moments, like oh God, I'm trying to think of the term she uses, but it's a very it's a metaphorical term.
Yeah. It's, as I say, I just feel like they could have had more fun with the body swap thing. Like, we've got these two scenarios that they've both got to go do something. But with the time we spend on the B plot, the time we spend on the C plot, I just feel like we kind of rush through it. Like, we get maybe one or two juicy
it's like you said at the beginning, there's a lot happening in this episode. When you have an A, B, and C plot, and you try to put as much time into all of them as each other.
And also, what is the challenge here? What is the challenge for an experienced, like she works with people who kind of like have got these kind of illogical thoughts. So I think something like diplomacy would not be a difficult stretch for her. You've got him who's used to working with all sorts of species, all sorts of challenges. So working with people who need to be rehabilitated to logic isn't really a challenge for him. The stakes are so low as well. I don't get why one is difficult for the other. And then the fact you get Spock like punching him in the face, and later on she goes like, well, knowing him, that seems very logical. It's 2 clown shoes for Vulcan. I'm sorry, it is.
Yeah, you know what? This has just occurred to me now. We should have done the body swap between Spock and Chapel. And so Spock would have had to go on a really awkward date with this guy that's really into Chapel. And
Chapel spends the night on her own in Spock's quarters.
Well, Chapel's got to do the diplomacy and stuff like that, but
Chapel would peak. You know it.
Probably, yeah. Yes, good point. But
well, that's what she'd be saying.
Good fun, because at the end of it, you'd have had yes, so we got it. At the end of it, you could have had Chapel going, so what happened with my boyfriend then? Spock could go, well, you're engaged now because he seemed a very nice bloke and that was logical, and you should be pursuing this relationship with this guy,
And I understand being human, it was logical to engage in intercourse on the first date. It seemed logical at the time.
Yeah, I would go to Dr. Mabenga and get a check, but... See, there you go. So, that would have been interesting, body swapping Spock with someone who's not logical and who has a completely different task to do. But,
like I say, I think they've done it with T'Pring, because we're going to have to go, being the guest star every now and again. We've got to fit in a lot between going through it and all that. It don't seem to be any problems to... who are wanting him to have a fight to the death.
Yeah, see, I
to get rid of him.
Well, to me, the logic, the thing which you could do there to really highlight those growing differences is to highlight where Spock's more emotional in this younger part of his life, and she is so literal to logic. If you'd brought in more of that and more of, again, written her more as a pure Vulcan, which she really isn't written as. Like in the first episode, she's going like the waiter prudishly goes like, perhaps you'd like to take this somewhere else. Like, what an excellent idea. That's so humanly loaded.
Yeah.
I think if you really want to drive the wedge between them, you highlight how logical she is, how illogical he is, and maybe even you point out that that's what attracts her to him to begin with, but then that causes the space between them later.
I honestly thought this episode, and until nearly the very end of the episode, I thought this is how they're going to resolve to bring, like, this experience is going to make them realize it's not working, and that's why they're going to be where they are by the time we meet her in Amok time. But obviously they've got a longer arc in mind for her, which is fine. But I just felt like it was going to be a bit more definitive. Anyway, so
it'd be interesting to know how many episodes she signed for.
Yeah, I mean, so 2 this season so far, but we'll see. So then, we get the scene to bring Spock with the Rangovians, and they start being a lot more logical. And I like that Pike and April are just sort of sitting off to the side. It's like we're just here to observe. You're not allowed to.
Can I just give some props to? I love Admiral April's character. Because he's sort of like, you get that he's the kind of like buddy of Pike. They maybe like share a drink like in their version 10 Forward After Hours and everything. But like you get that it's only because he's Pike's friend that he puts up with as much bullshit he does. Like, Pike gives him headaches all the time. It's like, oh, for fuck's sake, do you realize how many favors I had to put in to get you out of the crap this time?
Yeah, and
I love that.
It's probably one of them where he's like, it really frustrated me. He's like, but he's always right, Pike does all this stuff and he always gets it right. It always works out.
It sort of reminds me of Due South. I know it's like random Paul, but you know how much I love Due South. It's where they've kind of got the captain there who's always getting annoyed with Vecchio going off mission and going off on these random missions with the Mountie and everything. But at the end of the day, he realizes that they get the job done. And so he kind of like, you can see the ways in which he gives them enough rope to complete what they're doing, even though he's annoyed with the fact that they're doing it. I get the feeling
it's like in 24, every season, everyone's always saying, don't let Jack Bauer do what he wants. And you're watching it and you're going, just let Jack do what he wants. Trust me, he will get this
sorted. It probably won't take 24 hours if you let him do what he wants.
Exactly. Not trying to stop him, he's always right.
That's maybe why it went down to 12-hour seasons.
Exactly.
Yeah, they stopped arguing with him.
Just let him get on with it.
Oh, interesting little side bit of trivia about 24. Alexander Siddig, when he did the series of 24, was offered to do further series, as he revealed in my little interview with him.
I recall.
Because at the time, he was offered that it was going to be a two-hander between the two of them. Then when Keith Sutherland wanted to do less of it, then he could have stepped in.
Yeah,
he turned it down.
That would have been really cool.
Oh, and by the way, just shows you what a kind of like real true to himself person that Alexander Siddig is, because he was offered that and he goes, no, I've signed up to this independent film. And they go, but this would be crap loads of money for several years, multiple series deals. Going, but I already agreed to do this. Yeah. And they could not get that argue with. No, what a man.
Props to him, absolutely. Yeah. So instead, they just blew him up about 3 episodes later, from what I recall. But
they were obviously not happy with this response.
No, it's a shame because his character at the start of the season is really interesting, and then they just put him on a flight to Washington for 3 episodes, and then when you next see him, he gets blown up. But anyway, never mind. So this is where we're sort of wrapping things up, really. Like Spock goes and, as you say, punches the bloke, which that felt out of character, to me anyway.
Yeah.
M'Benga just puts them back together by putting goop on them, so that's
not a gong in sight. That's all I'm saying. Not a gong in sight.
And meanwhile, we get the fun montage with Lan and Una doing the different tasks, so they stun each other, and you've got to see if you can beam flavor back into chewing gum, which I enjoy. That's a really good.
I love that one. The one I didn't like so much is I still think solar sails have never looked cool on Star Trek. They never managed to make it look cool. So when they go, it's like, oh my god, the lights from that's like what the slightly lame CG, which kind of looks the same as when they did it in DS9.
Solar sails have always looked really naff. I don't know. Maybe it's they can't get the billowy thing right, because like Count Dooku in the Star Wars prequels, he had a solar sailing ship, and that looked naff. And it's like, if you can't do it with Star Wars money, then there's probably something we shouldn't be trying.
And given that was the end of their kind of like mission to do all these little side tasks, and then they're like, oh my god, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
I did like that. They did the last task though better than everyone else because they didn't put on spacesuits.
No, you know what? Really,
so we can walk underneath the shield.
It'd have been cool if they'd have had the belts out of the animated series. Just like a little nod to that. If they'd have just gone, oh, these are experimental, but I'm sure they'll be all right. That'd have been quite good.
The other bit I want to raise one point about is I do love that last scene. And again, I cannot say it enough. Anson Mount has the most fun anyone has doing anything as he does playing Pike.
Yeah.
Glorious to see. Wonderful little speech. The only thing I did think is I get radical empathy, but he just really just says everything that's the worst about Starfleet. I kind of feel like in that speech, if you're going to reflect their mental processes, for them to sign on to Starfleet, you still have to go, it's like, look, this is what you benefit, but here's all the downsides. I feel like you have to add into the speech.
Yeah, it's trying to show I understand why you're nervous about it. But like you say, he doesn't big up the benefits. He's like, yeah, well, you'll get protection from us, but we'll probably start the trouble.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't really sell Starfleet as what Starfleet is. So it's like,
if you really want it to... But it does say, though, it goes, my hunch is that all they want is their diplomacy is to want someone to see it from their point of view.
Yeah, which I agree with. I'm just saying it's like, and I get it for drama purposes, why you have to have him kind of tanking it or seem like he's tanking it. But it's almost like I like that speech to begin with. It's like, hey, look, if you join us, this is the good stuff you get. And then go into the tanking, because then it makes sense that it's like they've still got a reason to join. Because if their whole thought process is these guys are going to fuck us, there's still no reason at the end of it that them to join.
Still see a benefit. Maybe.
Well, it does say it goes like you'll get our technology, we'll be there for any disaster.
But he does it all
undermines that.
Yeah. Maybe his hunch that he's playing is, well, they know what all the benefits are. We just need to show them that we understand what
he's being honest about what the problems can be.
Yeah.
And I guess in previous talks, they've already highlighted.
Yeah, they've already had the sales pitch.
This is sort of it. Yeah, this is him going, look, I can see why you're worried. And this is why you're worried.
Yeah.
And he's basically saying what they're worried about.
And I still do think it's a lovely scene, and it's a lovely kind of way of selling it. And the idea of radical empathy seems totally in keeping with Star Trek. And yeah, I thought it was lovely. And again, it's almost like an expansion of everything we know about Star Trek. But it's like, hey, if we take this to the nth degree and show as much empathy that we'll even see the downsides to joining us.
Yeah.
That's so brave. I do admire it in one sense. I don't know. Just I get the arguments for and against.
So then... The wrap up to Pring and Spock then. So they have this kind of heart-to-heart chat. And she says, well, I was worried you saw it only as a duty. And I know this is our foreknowledge of what's to come, but by the time of the mock time, he is really seeing it only as a duty. And that's exemplified by the fact that he don't even stick around once he gets through the Pomfar, which he sort of gets his rocks off fighting Kirk, effectively. He don't stick around to be with T'Pring. He's like, right, that's done now. Yeah. And she's already on with someone else. So it felt like the dangling thread there that Spock could have said, you know what, I kind of am seeing it as a duty. Maybe we shouldn't be. And then she can say, well, I think you'll find that since we're engaged, you stuck with me or whatever. it feels like they wrote themselves a get out here, but chose not to take it, which, as we've said,
which is why I think she's got, like at the moment, if you think about it, she's been in 40% of the episodes.
Yeah.
But she's been in a lot of this show. That's almost a season regular.
Well, that's it. And
are we going to get a lot to bring throughout the season?
You see, this is my feeling. They're going to pull the taffy quite a lot in this storyline to a point where I'm not sure I need it, I've got to admit. And I think especially the way they're writing it, in Amok Time and in every other example of the original series version of Vulcans, they prize duty over relationships. Yeah. Relationships are something to get duty done, really. And the fact that they're saying it's like, God, Spock, why are you not seeing it from her point of view, girlfriend? It just seems very human and very against everything we know of Vulcans. And I again, it makes them less pure. It's almost like they've said, Vulcan isn't about logic. Vulcan's about speaking in a very precise way, so you sound a bit like a robot. That is not logic. That's just speaking in a certain way.
Yeah, I feel like they've definitely got more planned with her, but I feel like they could have had a get out here. But I'm interested to see what they're going to do, and I'm really interested in what they're going to do with Chapel, because certainly how the episode ends is very much setting up, right, she's really into Spock, so we're going to have some sort of love triangle coming up. But then we've also got the spectre of Roger Corby somewhere, so it's kind of a love square.
Yeah, I think they're setting themselves up that they've got 5 years to play with things.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think there's also going to be a thing of like, I think Roger Corby's almost going to be like the idea that she's growing out of this crush which she's had on Spock, and she'll go towards this new love, and it'll look hunky-dory, but we know where that leads. Yeah.
No, I mean, lots of threads set up and lots of stuff going on. I'd say...
I think it's that thing with to bring Spock. I think it's very early to call what they're doing. I agree with you that they seem to have forgotten how to write Vulcans.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's like Discovery's been criticised for how emotional it is. And I wonder if it's got something to do with that they're trying to put emotions into everyone.
That's the thing. In Discovery, when they had the Vulcans, like one of the first things which Sarek says is to Michael, and he says, behave. It's what fucking Vulcan says behave. Yeah. That's not logic. Anyway. So right from the beginning, they sort of stepped their soul out that their Vulcans were emotional.
Different Vulcans, but there we go. So yeah, I think maybe the weakest episode so far, this, just because it doesn't feel like as solid as the other episodes. It doesn't feel...
I think you're probably saying it's the weakest because of the Prince Spock stuff, which is a bit funny. But then when you see the comedy side, that was funny with Number One and Lan. I thought the diplomatic thing works really well. I thought that was a really nice new twist on how to do a diplomatic.
Yes. And I would love that as a main story. But to me, because you do make the main story the Spock and Prim thing, it kind of feels to me like it's the one I most had to throughout the episode. Imagine I wasn't watching Star Trek. It's like, imagine these aren't Vulcan. Like if I could separate...
You wanted a Spock episode.
I want a Spock episode. I want a wacky episode. I didn't want them together.
You're to blame.
No.
I just think it's the least focused episode so far.
Yeah.
I think it's not as great as the sum of its parts. You know, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's just
like the body swap episode could have been its own episode, and the other two storylines could have been its own episode.
The C plot could have been an entire episode, or
I don't think the C plot could have been. Really?
Or it could have been a B plot to another episode without having an A, B, C plot.
Yeah.
I think if you got rid of
the amount of length for that.
If you got rid of the Spock to Prim thing, it had that as in its own episode, and then had the two other plots from this of the diplomatic mission and the Enterprise bingo, those two would have paired very well together as a complete
just felt a lot more solid.
Like you could have put more in the Enterprise bingo where like they were basically on an empty ship, but you could have had them doing it with other people around them dodging, getting caught,
and trying not to.
Which is part of the thing with Enterprise Bingo. Jensen's are doing it while the ship's absolutely packed.
They don't want the lower decks to see that they're having a bit of fun with it.
Yeah. And also, I do think a body swap episode, again, it feels very premature on the run to me, but if you're going to do it, give it its full episode.
Yeah.
Like the C plot would have had a nice ending if they'd been caught at the end by Pike and he found out that they'd punished two ensigns for doing it. So he gives them exactly the same punishment.
Oh, yeah, that would have been quite good. Yeah. And then we could have finished with everybody laughing like they do in TOS.
I would love for them to have been sent to Pike's office, like to be told off.
Yeah.
And then, big laughter. Oh, that would be lovely. You see?
So
we caught this on someone looking out from the bridge saw this. You two on the front of the saucer.
They could be like two naughty schoolgirls, like in front of the headmaster. It's like, sorry, Pike. Yeah, very sorry, Mr. Pike.
Sorry, Captain.
Yeah.
It won't happen again, sir.
And then as soon as they leave, he has a big laugh to himself. Brilliant. Yeah, perfectly.
Oh, yeah, like it catches them before they do the last bit. And then when they go out to sign the thing, they see that he's signed it as well.
Yeah.
That's how it should have ended.
Yeah, it should have had a little bit more tacked onto the C plot to just finish it off in that sort of full circle.
Yeah.
You did somebody, you punished someone for doing it, and now you're doing it, so you have to suffer.
Yeah. That's the thing. I think all three of these could have been expanded out, and just all three of them together. None of them really
there's too much happening.
Yeah.
They're all good stories, but there's not enough time.
Yeah.
What is it? 50-minute episode, and they all got probably about 45 minutes each. Sorry, 15 minutes each.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. So what about next week then? Whose episode do we think it's going to be?
Ortegas, I'm sticking with.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to go Ortegas. I think she's due.
I was going to say Ortegas as well, so we seem agreed.
I'm hoping, I would actually like to see some interesting expansion of her character. I think she is a fun comedy foil, don't get me wrong. I'd like them to have a bullshit excuse why she uses so much 21st century language. Like maybe she loves that century, and like with, I've said before, like with Paris, if she's like a student of 21st century.
Well, that's it. They played Paris, didn't they? And they had him, and it worked in how you had him with his cars and stuff.
And there's also a really fun thing you can always do with the character, which is played so lightly. What's the reason why she's got to make a joke out of everything? What's she avoiding? Because they've had every other character has had their family brutally murdered by the Gorn or by a transport accident or a Shancraft accident. So I think they could maybe in a different way give her a backstory of why she is so flippant all the time.
Yeah,
we don't know a lot about her yet. And she's the only one. She's been there. She's been interesting. She seems very likable.
Yeah, but she's the only one that we don't really know anything about.
That's it, exactly. So, yeah.
And I think you could have some real fun with the idea that maybe do some flashbacks. Like during the academy, she was always looked down upon, not good enough, and she didn't have a good time. She was about to quit. Then suddenly Pike discovers her and helps her out. That would be a really lovely. I think something like that would work very nicely as her backstory of why she's got to do everything by her own rules, because Starfleet didn't feel like a friendly place until she met Pike, and he brought out the best ideals of it.
Yeah, I'd go with that. So, yeah, an Ortegas episode next week then.
Yeah, we want some more.
Yes, please, writers.
But not a body swap.
No.
So, so we'll be covering that next week. If you want to get in touch with us in the meantime, we're at RetrekPod on Twitter, retrekpod@gmail.com if you want to email us, or come and join us on Facebook. Just search for Retrek. Dr. Squee, you've got the Dr. Squee show?
Yes, I have no idea who I'm interviewing next. I'm trying to sort out at the moment.
There we go, then.
It'll be a lovely show. Please tune in every Tuesday, 6 to 8, sw20radio.co.uk.
And thanks for trekking with us this time. We will see you next time on the Retrek.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
LLAP.
fascinating.